Armenia, a land where history and nature converge, giving rise to man-made wonders that transcend time and defy imagination. Monasteries and stone churches carved into cliffs tell stories of faith, resilience, and the extraordinary skill of the Armenian people. Ancient cities with cobblestone squares, fortresses, and tombs paint a vivid picture of life thousands of years ago. Bridges, roads, and ancient irrigation systems still stand, demonstrating the ingenuity, engineering, and enduring creative spirit of Armenia. Today, we explore Armenia's man-made wonders, where every structure tells a story, both timeless and full of life. Victory Bridge stands boldly on basalt rock that has rested for over 1.5 million years. Standing here, you feel as if the ground beneath your feet was forged in ancient time, solid enough to swallow every vibration from passing cars. Looking down into the deep gorge, the natural curve of the V-shaped valley opens like a massive geological cut. In winter, taking just a few steps from the end of the bridge to its center gives you a temperature shift of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, like walking from late fall into early winter in mere seconds. The trapped air beneath the rocks absorbs every sound, making your own voice feel strangely distant. The basalt columns rising on each side form natural patterns so precise they seem carved by human hands. And on clear days, you can spot Mount Ararat over 55 kilometers away, small yet sharp, like a silver blade on the horizon. And when the sun sets, the shadow of the valley stretches into a deep, endless ribbon. It is a moment that makes anyone pause, not to take a photo, but to realize that sometimes the urban and the wild can blend into something beautifully contradictory. Armenian Genocide Museum feels like stepping into a memory carved beneath the earth. The sunken entrance is so narrow that if two people walk side by side, the air itself seems to tighten. The long, dim corridors slow your pace. The way standing on a windy cliff makes you breathe differently because the silence presses in from every direction. Nearby, the space dedicated to those who helped glows like a point of solace. Letters and handwritten messages from world leaders line the wall of memory, creating the sense that you've entered a chamber where history still breathes. Because many artifacts rotate every 6 to 12 months, each visit feels entirely new. The journey ends in a 50-seat screening room where rare films play exclusively here. And when you finally return to daylight, you understand why this place is more than a museum. It is an experience that forces you to confront memory, resilience, and the fragile strength of humanity. Victory Park, Yerevan rises like a windwell on high ground, where just a few dozen feet of walking can make you feel the air thin out for a moment. Standing here, the city below opens nearly half its view wider, glowing in patches as if someone placed a massive mirror beneath your feet. The basalt hill, shaped by eruptions from over 1 million years ago, forms gentle slopes, steps, and flat stretches that somehow make climbing feel effortless. In autumn, over 65% of the deciduous canopy turns gold and red, creating the sensation of a natural color filter stretched across Yerevan. From this vantage point, locals believe a quiet strength seems to watch over the city, making it not just a viewpoint, but a place where travelers can feel the resilience of the Caucasus settle into the air around them. Cascade Complex sits on a high terrace in Yerevan, where the elevation gap near 100 feet makes you feel the wind strike your face as if the entire city were breathing beneath you, while the travertine formed from mineral-rich hot water feels cold and sharp under your fingertips, like ancient stone shaped over countless ages. Climbing upward, the horizontal stepped pyramid reveals itself as something unlike anything in Europe or Asia. The afternoon shadows stretch into massive zigzag waves frozen mid-air, and in one sudden opening, Mount Ararat appears so clear it feels as though the cascade is speaking directly to the mountain. Inside, escalators stretching over several hundred feet carry you through a modern corridor that contradicts the classical exterior, while the wind, slipping through small openings, creates a resonant hum like a natural sound tube that makes you pause mid-step. At night, glowing edges turn the entire structure into a floating pyramid rising above the city, and standing midway up, you feel suspended between two worlds, where light, stone, and wind merge into a single pulse that explains why the cascade has become the first visual landmark welcoming anyone who arrives in Yerevan. Garni Royal Bathhouse sits on the edge of a basalt cliff, rising more than 50 meters, where just standing close to the rim lets you feel heat rising from the 2-million-year-old volcanic stone beneath. The path leading in is so narrow that even shifting your foot slightly makes you pause, and inside, the mosaic floor, built from stones only 1 to 1.5 centimeters wide, glimmers under the harsh light. Stepping deeper, the Hippokos system appears with its small brick pillars, standing about 60 centimeters tall, looking like a miniature forest, yet functioning as the engine that once warmed the entire structure. The sequence of cold, warm, then hot rooms follows the exact Roman layout, making you feel as if you are replaying the bathing ritual of nobles from nearly 2,000 years ago. And perhaps most unforgettable is the fusion of refined architecture and raw landscape, a sea-themed mosaic in a landlocked region, basalt dust, forming a thin black haze in the sun, and the sensation that you've stepped into a place where time chooses to linger longer than anywhere else. Begano Noravank Monastery rises among crimson mountains, where geology older than 145 million years paints the slopes in fiery red and orange. The narrow path leading here is essentially a single worn trail, tight enough that people must walk one at a time, all while sensing the dry, slightly thin air above 5,200 feet. In the morning, the stone glows like honeyed gold, yet by afternoon, it shifts into a blood-red hue as iron oxide warms under the sun. The monastery is built from dense grey basalt, measuring up to 3.0 grams per cubic centimeter, granting the structure an almost timeless endurance. Ancient Armenian cross motifs carved into its walls remain sharp, like whispers from a steadfast civilization, surviving harsh terrain. Surrounding the monastery, wind-shaped ridges form rock waves, sculpted over thousands of years. When night arrives, the sky grows dark enough that light pollution drops to just 1 or 2% of urban levels, allowing the Milky Way to appear like a quiet silver trail. This land of stone and wind reminds every visitor that resilience carries its own language. Gini Fortress rises atop a massive basalt block nearly 100 meters high, where the path up is so narrow you can only move single file. Winds shooting up from the Hrazdan Valley accelerate by 30 to 40%, pulling your breath backward and making every footstep echo sharply between cliff faces cut close to 90 degrees. The summit is surprisingly broad, formed completely of solid mountain rock. Ancient builders never leveled it. They built their walls directly on the stone, making everything seem as if it grew out of the mountain itself. The fortress walls, over 2 meters thick, have stood for more than 1,000 years, shifting from gray in the morning to a faint blue at noon and glowing golden by late afternoon. In winter, snow settles over the black basalt, turning the entire structure into a stark contrast of shadow and frost. Scattered shards of pottery and faint carved marks whisper of life from the X century, as if the mountain still remembers every soldier who once stood guard here. Narata's Kachkar Cemetery lies on an ancient basalt plateau so old that simply standing on the ground lets you feel the chill rising from volcanic stone over 2 million years old. At an elevation of over 6,000 feet, sunlight hits the stones so strongly that their carvings appear sharp, like they were etched with a laser, while the wind blows so steadily that even a loud voice gets carried away into open air. Moving deeper into the cemetery, you see kachkas from the Ain to the 50th centuries standing like a living field of stone. Each slab carries its own identity, some carved with the rare light-weaving technique that creates three-dimensional effects when sunlight strikes the surface. What overwhelms visitors is how the stone changes color with the weather. Bright orange under sun, purplish-brown in the cold, and grayish-green when the air is moist. All of them stand still, yet give the feeling of a stone army guarding the land, just as ancient tales describe. And then, standing in a space so wide that even echoes seem to disappear, you finally understand why this is called the largest open-air museum of Kachkars, a place where time does not move and only people walk quietly through history. Republic Square is the kind of place where, the moment you step in, ancient volcanic tuff over 1 to 2 million years old glows with a natural pink hue, as if someone brushed fire across the entire space. Here, the dry, clear air of a highland, sitting at around 3,300 feet, makes it feel like a single deep breath could let you see all the way to the Caucasus horizon. The architecture reflects Soviet planning from the early FE century, yet blends seamlessly with traditional Armenian motifs, creating a space both historic and modern. At sunset, the stone turns vivid shades of orange and red within minutes, like watching a massive wall of rock ignite before your eyes. Beneath your feet lies a stone mosaic shaped like an enormous Armenian carpet, the kind that makes travelers freeze for a moment when seen from above. Locals call this place the Pink Heart, and truly, every breeze drifting in from the Ararat Valley feels like it's carrying the city's pulse. During peak season, more than 30,000 people pass through each day. Yet what stays with you isn't the crowd, but the moment you stand still in the center and feel the harmony of stone and light. A quiet reminder that this is the perfect place for any journey to begin. St. Sarkis Cathedral stands precariously on a dark basalt cliff formed 1 to 3 million years ago, where winds rush through the canyon so sharply that you may feel as if your balance is slipping. The steep path leading upward is narrow enough that stepping back even half a pace makes the tough stone shift colors under the late sun, overwhelming you with its intensity. When the bells ring, canyon winds create a venturi effect that stretches the sound unnaturally long, pulling you into a surreal moment between the ancient and the modern. On St. Sarkis Day, thousands arrive seeking a sign of love, adding a mystical undertone to this place. In winter, snow settles on the dome, while the bells echo farther than any church downtown. Standing at the terrace edge, you understand why this spot is considered the start of new journeys, where people feel small, yet somehow more willing to take one step further toward whatever they have been searching for. Yerevan Opera Theatre sits at the center of an ancient volcanic plateau, where the tough stone, formed by eruptions millions of years ago, still holds a faint warmth under sunlight. Around the theatre, the high sunlight average of roughly 2,700 hours each year makes the stone walls shift shades constantly, from silver gray to deep charcoal, as if the building itself were breathing with the light. Moving inside, you notice architect Tamanyan's jewel-scape philosophy, one structure opening toward two grand squares, like a figure standing at the crossroads of culture. The two masses of opera and ballet, joined by a sweeping, curved corridor, feel as though you are walking through a flow of music carved in stone. In front of the theatre, the crescent-shaped square casts the shadow of the curved roof like a giant half-moon drawn across the ground. By night, soft golden lighting settles over the area, making you feel as if you could reach out and touch the halo shimmering around the architecture. The reflecting pool doubles the tough facade. Street performers turn the surroundings into an open-air stage, and the night scenery turns the building into a stone moon hovering over the city. It is a place where art, daily life, and history blend until you can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. Armenia Historic Village lies in a high desert mountain zone where taking just a few steps reveals red stone cracked by arid conditions, rainfall reaching only 250 to 300 millimeters per year. The narrow path into the valley feels like a single, worn strip, wide enough for one person, giving the impression of entering land untouched by human presence. Standing beneath red cliffs, rising 200 to 350 meters, you hear wind slicing through fissures, producing a long howl, an acoustic effect created without the need for caves. In late afternoon, sunlight glides across the rock and turns it into a burning red, as if a full barrel of paint had been poured over the ridge. The sky expands and the stars shine so brightly you feel you could reach out and touch them. Then, the old Armenian saying, "Red wine born from red earth," becomes clear. Every layer of stone, every draft of wind, every drop of sunlight contributes to the flavor. Drinking wine here offers the sensation of becoming part of a land rooted in 6,000 years of history. Etchmiadzin lies on the vast Ararat Plain, a land stretching over 12,000 square miles, where the earth is so flat the horizon feels endless. At nearly 2,900 feet above sea level, temperatures can swing by 20 degrees Fahrenheit in a single day, creating a strange morning cool, noon heat, night chill rhythm that feels like stepping through 3 seasons at once. The cathedral stands exactly where, according to tradition, a divine beam of light touched the ground, and it was built from red-orange-gray volcanic tuff shaped by the ancient Aragats volcano. Each passing hour repaints the walls, cool gray at dawn, burning amber at noon, deep wine red at dusk, beauty that needs no filter. Today, this UNESCO-recognized site welcomes over 1 million visitors each year. Anyone who stands in its light understands why artists call it the golden point of dry light, a place where the world looks like a living photograph, impossibly vivid and real. Zvartnots Cathedral lies on a layer of alluvial soil more than 10 millennia old, a surface so flat that a single misplaced step feels like walking into open space. The structure once rose as a rare three-tiered circular design, twisting upward like a frozen celestial wheel from the turbulent San century. When the sun sinks, iron-rich basalt reflects deep red light, turning the entire ruin into a glowing blend of warm gold and rose. The kind of light that makes you blink, as if someone cranked up the saturation. In winter, thin snow over dark stone creates contrasts so sharp that simply lifting your camera earns you an artistic shot. Beneath your feet, spiral carvings on ancient slabs feel like they're unlocking memories of a long-lost faith. Standing inside that nearly perfect circular ruin, you sense you've stepped onto an ancient sky dish where time no longer moves, only watches you breathe. Vahanavank Monastery rises precariously along a mountainside, reaching roughly 4,265 to 4,921 feet above sea level, where morning clouds drift at eye level, and you feel as if you could touch the sky with an open hand. Around it stretches a geological foundation of nearly 25 to 30 million years, carved into dark basalt and andesite walls that form a narrow path so tight only one person can pass at a time. As you approach, the monastery's reddish volcanic stone blends into the shadowy mountain, carrying the solemn presence of medieval Armenian architecture, conical domes and mortarless stonework that have endured for more than 1,000 years despite wars and earthquakes. In autumn, the valley below transforms into a vivid carpet of gold and crimson, contrasting sharply with the grey dome and making the entire structure appear suspended in mid-air. By the end of the journey, standing on the ancient stone platform, you finally understand why this place is regarded as a symbol of Armenia's endurance. A realm where fierce nature, a millennium of history, and perfect silence merge, leaving you overwhelmed and astonishingly small. Tsitsanakabur Genocide Memorial sits on a hilltop where the wind blows roughly from 20 to 30% stronger than downtown, sharp enough that the air feels colder and cleaner, with every footstep sounding clearer than usual. The monument was completed in the 20th century, designed with a stark minimalism that avoids statues or large inscriptions. All emotion is channeled through the tilt of the stone slabs and the silence between them. The kind of silence that makes people slow down the moment they step inside. From the hilltop, you can see the entire city below, while the shadows of the 12 stone blocks shift by the hour, stretching out like arms, pointing toward the eternal flame set deep beneath the ground. And the strangest part is this: despite not being physically huge, the monument feels overwhelmingly massive. Visit near sunset, when the light turns the stone surfaces silver and cold, and you will understand why hundreds of thousands choose to stand in silence beside a flame that never dies. Vernissage Art Market sits on tuff and basalt formed 25 to 40 million years ago, so the ground under your feet feels ancient, as if every step moves across compressed time. From a handful of painters on a sidewalk in the 1980s, the market now stretches nearly 1,150 feet, long enough to feel like a river of art that can take 20 to 30 minutes to walk through if nothing distracts you along the way. When you enter, the colors of woven rugs and paintings fall over you like a visual ambush. Some sections feel like you have stepped into an open-air gallery where reds, yellows, and blues blend so vividly that even sunlight seems tinted by them. Elsewhere, the sounds of wood, stone, and shifting canvases create a handmade symphony, sometimes joined by the soft strokes of an artist painting right in front of you. The feeling is like walking through a massive outdoor studio. On weekends, crowds rise to 3,000 to 5,000 visitors, and that is when you understand why this place is called the soul of Yerevan's craftsmanship. Nearly 90% of the items are handmade, each carrying the fingerprint of its creator. Matena Daran rises on an ancient basalt hill like a massive stone emerging from the earth, where the afternoon light casts shadows so sharp that the carved lines seem almost razor-thin. Inside, The gallery is lit at only 50 to 70 lux, dimmer than a public park at night, forcing you to squint to see ink made from minerals that has survived for over 1,200 years, each manuscript holding the breath and fingerprints of scribes who lived a millennium before us. Some reds, once worth nearly as much as gold, were created from countless crushed lac insects, while languages long extinct remain sealed within these pages, turning the place into a living cemetery of tongues. And when snow falls, the white layer settles on the dark volcanic stone like frost on the memory of humanity. Standing there, you understand why people call it the intellectual heart of a nation. Halidzor Fortress sits on a ridge nearly 1,600 meters high, where just a few seconds of standing still lets you feel the thinner air and the wind tugging at you, as if trying to pull you toward the edge. The black basalt beneath your feet is unbelievably solid, and this volcanic stone has kept the fortress unmoved for centuries across shifting mountain weather. The climb upward is steep enough that many visitors joke it is one step away from becoming actual mountaineering. But the higher you go, the more the nearly 1 meter thick stonework reveals itself, raw, cold, and steadfast like an ancient defense engine. Reaching the fortress core, the view opens into a 3-layer panorama: dark rock below, drifting clouds in the middle, and a distant, icy horizon above. At dawn, mist rises from the deep ravines and makes the fortress appear as though it is floating on a white sea. And when you look over 20 kilometers into the vast open landscape, you understand why this place became a symbol of Armenian resilience. Simply standing here feels like witnessing a declaration carved into the mountains. Nothing can break this land. Krasden Stadium is the kind of place that, unless you see it with your own eyes, you'd never believe anyone dared build a stadium on a mountainside so steep that taking one wrong step feels like your heart drops. The stands tilt at over 37 degrees, giving the sensation of sitting on a cliff edge, while the open bowl design funnels breezes that keep the air 2 to 4 degrees Celsius cooler in midsummer. The unbelievable part is that the entire structure was completed in only 18 months, reinforced with local volcanic stone that makes the concrete feel almost primordial. During the Soviet era, more than 50,000 people packed inside for every match, and their shouts ricocheted off the mountainside, forming what players called a wall of sound. The tiered entrances stack like a vertical transit station, where spectators weave through stone pathways, while currents of cool air slip through as if you were breathing inside a rocky gorge. Today, Razdan Stadium is quieter, but that is exactly why people come. To feel a structure that is both raw and proud, a place that still whispers the story of Armenia's boldness carved into the mountain. St. John the Baptist Church stands on a basalt plateau formed 1 to 2 million years ago, where the wind moves freely and sometimes whistles along the tower walls as if trying to push you off the ground, while the cold rising from the earth beneath your feet feels like the thin air you find in high places where breathing becomes heavier. From the terrace, the entire town below sits still like a giant model, with the early light shrinking the buildings, while the church rises like a massive fortress, and by late afternoon, the tall walls cast shadows stretching dozens of feet, giving you the sense of standing before a machine capable of bending time. In winter, the tough stone grows so cold that the dim lights make the entire church look like an orange block of ice, and standing on the main steps feels like entering an ancient ceremonial center where 1,000 years of tradition collide with modern breath, making you smaller yet clearer about the direction you must take next. Shengavat Archaeological Site, an ancient archaeological location of Armenia, was formed on volcanic basalt over 1.5 million years old, a foundation tough enough that stone structures dating back 5 millennia still preserve their outlines. Standing here feels like stepping onto a massive black shield, where even a single strike against the ground sends sound rippling outward. Beneath the dry soil lie red and black ceramics fired between 700 and 900 degrees Celsius, along with serpentinite rings that stay cold to the touch, evidence that Shengavat once served as an early hub of craftsmanship and spiritual symbolism. Patterns matching those from Neolithic Iran reveal a surprisingly wide cultural network. And when you stand right beside these ancient circular house foundations without barriers or glass, the place feels less like ruins and more like a compact prehistoric city, one where archaeology becomes something you sense directly, as if the heartbeat of an early civilization were pulsing through the present moment. Ararat Brandy Factory, Ararat, sits on a natural rise above Yerevan, where just a few steps can shift the height enough for the wind to strike sharper than usual. Standing here on a clear day, the view can stretch beyond 12 to 15 kilometers, an open space so vast it makes you feel slightly dizzy, as if one more step could put you on the edge of the city. From the rooftop, Yerevan spreads out like a deep and wide canvas, filled with geometric Soviet-era structures sharply contrasted against the snow-capped Mount Ararat in the distance. That contrast gives the landscape a surreal feeling, both ancient and industrial at once. A little deeper into the tour, you'll find stories of diplomacy tied to Ararat brandy, from Churchill to events of the X century. And in the tasting room, lifting a crystal glass, you realize this place does more than make brandy. It distills history, light, and Armenian pride into every drop. Yerevan Brandy Company cellars, the aging cellars of a wine and brandy distillery with a history of more than century I, greet you with air held steady at around 57 to 61 degrees Fahrenheit. The kind of chill that instantly tells you this place exists solely to shape the maturity of its spirits. Down here, no heat from the world above survives. The volcanic stone walls lock time and temperature in place. As you walk deeper, thousands of oak barrels stretch through corridors that feel like a tunnel of time. Each one holds roughly 66 to 132 gallons of brandy, resting inside wood, sourced from oaks that lived 80 to 150 years before, becoming vessels for aging. The air carries a distinct mix of evaporating brandy, damp wood, and dim light kept low so the liquor does not suffer any shock. Even the slightly moist floor, caused by natural temperature contrast, signals a perfectly balanced environment for slow, steady aging. Komitas Museum Institute emerges across a dry volcanic sediment landscape where the intense Yerevan light repaints the stone's color every hour, as if someone were constantly changing the backdrop of the entire space. Moving deeper, the large, unadorned walls stand still like an extended pause, the kind of silence Komitas often used to force listeners to feel the beat through their own heartbeat. Every spatial proportion here is calculated according to traditional musical rhythms rather than conventional architectural rules, making each footstep echo like the opening accent of a harmonic line. When you lift your camera, the natural light turns every frame into an art film poster. In that moment, Komitas Museum Institute stops being a museum and becomes a temple of memory, where Armenian musical heritage is narrated through light, emptiness, and a rare stillness untouched by the noise of modern life. Kutskonk Monastery lies hidden in a gorge deeper than 100 yards, where the temperature at the bottom falls several degrees lower than the land above, creating the sensation of descending into a natural cold chamber. The columnar basalt surrounding it rises like enormous blades formed from rapidly cooled lava, a sight sharp enough to make your skin prickle. From here, 5 closely packed churches once stood since the 6th century, a layout so rare it feels almost unreal. The remnants of a dome, once towering over 50 feet, still cling to fractured walls, telling how weather, erosion, and conflict erased 4 of the original structures. And when spring light cuts diagonally through the gorge, the place resembles a path back into history. In that absolute silence, every sound feels swallowed by stone, and you sense you are only a visitor who stumbled upon a secret time forgot to lock away. Shakatskar Monastery stands on a mountainside at an elevation close to 2,000 meters, where winds can sweep through at 40 to 60 kilometers per hour, strong enough to erase your voice after only a few feet. The narrow trail leading upward allows just one person at a time, each step carrying the sensation of entering a high plateau where thin air makes every breath heavier and sharper. Standing beneath cliffs, rising 200 to 350 meters, you see the monastery held between a vast natural wall, basalt and tough fracture under intense temperature shifts, leaving deep cuts across the rock. In late afternoon, sunlight moves across the iron-rich stone and turns the entire scene crimson. The sky is perfectly dark, free of dust, and each star sharp as a needle, creating the sensation of entering primordial nature, where nothing artificial can survive.